Are you a game master that's obsessed with the background music in your games? Are you super picky about which music you choose to play to portray exactly the vibe that you're going for? Then we're on the same page. In this video, I'll talk about the things that I learned as I navigated the process of creating my many playlists, and later I'll break that process down into 7 steps. With that said, I am far from being any sort of expert in these topics, and I would love if this video was more of an exchange of perspectives. So if you have experience with the topics that I'm going to cover in this video, please leave your process, your approach in the comments so that I can also learn and maybe apply those things myself. Music is so important for my D&D games, which is what I mainly play, that a significant percentage of my world building was based on song lyrics. In fact, I have currently 31 playlists from different important NPCs in my world. They help me think like those NPCs during session way more effectively so that I feel comfortable improvising. And if the music is not right during a session, I just can't get into it. It is super valid and way more normal, to be honest, to just put one playlist sort of related to what is happening and go with that and use that same playlist the whole session. That is way more work efficient. You have less to manage as a DM with your head already full of things that you have to keep in mind. And you probably change the playlist for combat and that's it. Great, right? I do not work like that. I just cannot. I have to have especially crafted playlists that reflect either the mood, the vibe of the place, or the specific situation that my players are in. And to me, when there is no music, it is eerie. It is very eerie. It's like something's not right. So in this next part, I'm going to show you the playlists that I've created so far. They are divided into 4 groups. There is music for emotions, there's music for places, there's music for characters or groups, and there's music for specific situations. So these are my 5 main folders. The one that I'm going to get into the most is my folder of the emotion playlists. These are the most important playlists that I have. And for example, I have the chase or light fight. And this is not in my fight folder because it's not an actual fight most of the time. It's something that I expect my players to get out of pretty easily. And then I have these 2 tension playlists. The difference between them is that D&D tension is when my players still don't know what the danger is, so the intensity of the music is lower. And then when my players discover the actual danger, but they're still not engaging with it, then I'll have the tense danger. There's also one more that completes and makes a triad of these, which is this epic foreboding. And epic foreboding is just these tension playlists but dialed up to 11. Then I have 2 neutral playlists, and those are my chill playlist and my thinking playlist. They both try to give off a sense of neutrality, but the difference between them is that thinking is way more serious than the chill one. The chill one, I wouldn't call it goofy, but there's an edge to it that makes the situation not take itself too seriously. Then the solemn playlist I play when there is emotional moments that I want to elevate. Then soft and lovely is loving connections between players or players between NPCs. Defeat and disappointment, sadness speak for themselves. And then the very chill playlist is what I play when there's absolutely no danger. The players aren't really engaging with any mystery. They're just around the campfire, they're just relaxing. This is what I play. Then I have my situations and people playlists that are very specific. You have groups of people, you have a specific NPC. This is just one song, basically. But because my players don't spend a lot of time with this NPC, I also don't really need a long playlist. Specific situations like rituals, specific taverns. I have a wedding proposal that my players are part of. Then my inspiration and unsorted playlists are where I dump a lot of stuff that I don't know where it should go. And as the name suggests, I have playlists that have two functions here. I have playlists for inspiration, which means they're not really meant to be played in session. They're just for me to get into the mood. And then I have unsorted playlists, which are the ones that have songs that still don't have a specific playlist. And here they are. Then I have my places playlists. And these are the second most important playlists that I have. They can be very specific places like cities, towns, but not necessarily. For example, I have this subfolder called D&D Seaside that I can play whenever my players are near a shore. Or I have the D&D Happy Fair that I can play whenever there's a festival, there's like a big market. And then, in places that I expect my players to spend a significant chunk of time, and or that I've already prepped, and there's certain expected moods that my players might find themselves in while in those places, then I make a subfolder for them specifically, and I subdivide them into specific emotions or moods within that place. And these are also just the product of me having the patience one day, because a lot of times I don't have more of these because I just don't have the patience to make them. And then I have my fighting playlists, which are just different flavors of fighting. Not much to tell about it. But my most important playlist is the default one, which is the one that normally I play in the beginning of the sessions, when the players are still confused, picking up on where they left off in the last session. And it is called the thinking playlist. And it's under the emotions category. And I know, like, thinking is not an emotion, but the word reflects the vibe of the playlist, which is we are discussing, we are thinking. The mood is neutral. There's not really anything going on, but there's important conversations that need to take place. So songs in this playlist, I try to get them to give off a vibe of neutrality, very light mystery and curiosity. And it is my most cherished playlist. I would not be able to DM without this specific playlist. And it is really hard to find songs for this playlist. It is such a specific thing that I'm looking for. And following up with that thought, making playlists like this is work. It is tiring, but it's so rewarding if you are like me. My playlists are flawed, and I have a lot of unsorted songs that I need to go back and go through and separate, and I procrastinate a lot in doing that work. But this is work that I only need to do once. And then I always have it available to me, and it's such a great asset to my D&D games. You can find long themed playlists on YouTube that have the vibe close enough to what you're looking for, and you can switch between them when you need. But I find it really hard, personally, to find a YouTube playlist that I really like. And this is because of some of the steps that I will tell you about during my process that are not done when the person crafting these playlists crafts them. Another problem with YouTube is AI. AI playlists for D&D on YouTube are popping up like crazy. It's another filter that you need to do when you're searching for playlists on YouTube. And there's ways to go around that. You can follow specific creators that you know do not use AI and use their playlists. But again, your options on YouTube are already shrinking depending on how picky you start to be. Another problem with YouTube playlists that I find as a very picky person is that long playlists will eventually have songs that do not really match the vibe. Or you'll find those 2-hour playlists that are basically the same song on loop, and that is so common. And it's fine for like a 20-minute thing, but if you continue listening to that playlist for like an hour, it gets super repetitive and it just messes with my immersion. Also, I'm not going to get into this. I encourage your own research, but I need to mention apps when it comes to D&D music, particularly this app, Pocket Bard. My partner has been following this app for a long time, and recently they've upgraded massively, and they are great. Unfortunately, the problem with this is still that it is not available for PC. It's only for mobile. There is also this one called Opus. Again, I don't have a lot of experience with this, I've never used it, but it seems to also be really good. My playlists are on Spotify, but with that said, I'm trying to be agnostic in what service you're using to make the playlists. First, you can find your favorite media, your favorite video games, your favorite movies that have really cool soundtracks that you'd love to use in your sessions, and then go through each song. Once you make a small playlist with 1 or 2 songs that really match the vibe, if the service that you're using has recommended songs, that's a great place to look for songs as well. Once you find a song that you really like, go to that artist's profile and see what other projects they've made. Chances are you'll vibe with other stuff that that artist has put out. You can search for specific genres. If you have an idea of what sort of genre you're going for, and just go on a rabbit hole of different artists and songs that fit that genre until you find the specific ones that fit into what you're trying to go for. Here is my process to choose and sort music for my D&D playlists. First, I see if there's vocals or any distracting elements. Vocals are a no-brainer. Normally, you do not want vocals in your playlists because they are distracting, unless you're doing a very intense playlist or a fight and you want like some choirs or something like that. But there might be other distracting elements in songs that are not vocals, like for example, an instrument that sounds really cool in the song but stands out a lot compared to the other instruments. Second step is to see if the song has the same intensity throughout. There is one exception for this, which is battle. Battle music does not need to have the same intensity throughout. Why do you care? Because when you're crafting a playlist that's supposed to be playing during player interactions, that's supposed to give off a certain feeling, and then suddenly the song goes super hyper and there's a bunch of more instruments and it's epic, it loses the feeling. Loses that specific cadence, that specific intensity that you wanted the scene between your players to have. How do you check if it's the same intensity? You can just skip through the song minute to minute and see if there's places that are very quiet and places that are very loud compared to each other. That is a no-no unless it's a battle song. If you're looking at the song visually, you can see those like bars that kind of go up and down, that tell you the intensity. If there is parts that are very thin and then there's a big part, there is a very drastic shift in intensity that you do not want on your normal interaction playlists. Third step, is the emotion that this song elicits the same throughout? Because there are a lot of songs that start hopeful and then get sad, or start kind of neutral and then get super tense. In making music, that is great. That takes you on a journey while you're listening to the song. But when you're looking for D&D playlist material, changing the emotion throughout is not going to give your playlist consistency. Fourth step, no-brainer. What is the emotion that this song elicits? And it is a step on its own because sometimes it's not really obvious. You really need to listen carefully and see what sort of emotions come up. And a lot of times it's a mix. And then you need to see what's the predominant thing that you feel, and then where that would fit within the playlist that you're crafting. Fifth step is, what is the subgenre of this song? What instruments are being used? What does it sound like? Because when you branch out of doing emotion playlists, which are the default ones, the most useful ones, you want to think about locations. You want to think about situations that you want a playlist for. You want to think about specific NPCs. And when you're wanting to create playlists that are meant to be unique to a certain place, to a certain personality, you really want to start looking and really diving in to the sonority. Sonority? Is that a word? Sonority. The quality or fact of being sonorous. You really want to keep in mind subgenres. This is when things start to be really difficult. It can be a lot of trial and error, especially if you're just randomly searching for songs and you're not focusing on one specific playlist. That said, focusing on one playlist is easier because you have really fresh in your mind what the song is supposed to sound like, but it can also be way more frustrating because your criteria of acceptance of a song are so narrow that you're gonna go through a lot of music without having a single hit. For the emotion playlists, this is way more forgiving. You don't really need to consider this step as much. And the good thing is you're going to use those way more often. They'll be larger, so it's not a big deal if you have two songs that sound very different as long as they portray the same emotion. Also, because of their size, you can clump songs that have a similar genre together so that the transition between genres on an emotion playlist is smoother. Sixth step. If a playlist comes to mind, add the song to it. If not, but the song still sounds super cool and you want to use it, you can add it to an unsorted playlist where you can go back later and find that song when you create new playlists that now fit that song. Do not make the mistake that I made of having one unsorted playlist for everything, because it's going to be grueling to go through that playlist later when it has like 100 songs and they all sound different and you're looking for a specific vibe. It's almost the same as not having an unsorted playlist. But also, if you make a million of them, it's really hard to go through all of them and find the one that you want to get songs out of. It also makes it really difficult when you're just searching for songs, because you find a song and it's really cool. It doesn't really fit any of your playlists and you're like, okay, let me put it in an unsorted playlist. And then you have like 40 unsorted playlists and you have to go through them to see which one fits the song. It's not efficient. So my suggestion, if you're going with unsorted playlists, is to divide them in emotions or a specific theme that you want to make playlists out of later. Let me explain what this means. When I make the playlists for a location, I can't put every emotion in the location playlist. Normally what happens is it gets divided into different emotions within that location. When I'm not making the location playlist specifically, I do an unsorted playlist of the location where I put everything that sounds like it would belong in that location. So going back to step 5, you look at the subgenre sounds like it would belong to that location. You put the song in the unsorted playlist of that location. Then when you need to make the playlist for that location, aka your players have decided to go there, you can go through the unsorted playlist and just make the emotions, and your work is easier, I suppose. Final step. After you finish your research session, go through all the playlists where you added songs to and check if the new songs do fit with the other songs that are there. You can find yourself needing to either exclude that song because you thought it worked, but actually the vibe is slightly off, and you put that song in an unsorted playlist. Or you might find that you want to move the song around to different places in the playlist where the transitions are smoother. And that is how I do it. I don't know if this is super intuitive. I hope that this helps you if you're trying to go crazy like I do. If you got to this point, first of all, thank you so much. You can judge how insane I am for putting myself through all this work. But if you're also obsessed with the music in your D&D games, please let me know how you do it in the comments below. Help me change my methods. Maybe find ways that are just as effective and less work intensive to do the same thing that I do. And if you got here, that means you probably also care a lot about the music that you play during your session. And because I do not want anyone to have to do unnecessary work, if you vibe with my playlists, I will leave them in the description, I think, for you to use in your sessions, in case they are good enough for your, suppose, equally picky tastes. Also, hi, this is my very first video on this channel. I am Sylvine. I fell in love with interactive storytelling and world building in 2020, and I'm the proud dungeon master of a 4-year-old D&D campaign called The Kindred, on a setting that I world built from the ground up named Vestige. It was my first world building attempt, and it was the one that I stuck with, so it is as good as it can be in those circumstances, but we all enjoy it, and I want to share some of my love for it here. I hope you stick around. If you liked the video, please subscribe. I do focus a lot more in the narrative side of D&D and RPGs. I'm not as much of a rules nerd. That is my partner, and we complement each other really well because it helps me with that part. So in this channel I'll go more in depth about storytelling and NPCs, and I would love to talk about psychology and how to make NPCs that feel more realistic. I love that stuff so much. I hope you stick around, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye! Bye bye!